What we see enhanced levels of isolation in students when they're engaged and they're consumed by devices. You see children much more isolated, much more to themselves, and much more reluctant to open up and to share with their parents. I just think you need to find natural opportunities to engage the children, to talk to the children, to understand who they're interacting with. Sounds simplistic, but it's part of the technology world. It moves us away from some of the substance and the traditional things that root families and that bond experiences together.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast, your trusted source for real-world tactics that keep students safe and help them to shine online. I'm your host, Josh Ochs. Each week, I sit down with K-12 superintendents, district leaders, and community voices who are shaping digital safety. We discuss wins, struggles, and strategies used to guide students so they can be safe and successful online. Now let's get back to the conversation.
Hello, I'm Kwame Morton, superintendent in Cherry Hill Public Schools, located in the great state of New Jersey. We have approximately 11,000 students spread across 18 schools with an alternative high school program as well. I'm glad to be here.
Superintendent, it's so great to have you here. Hello to our amazing audience. Whether you're a superintendent watching, a parent, or anyone in between, we're here at Smart Social to keep your kids safe so they can someday be successful. And to get them to success, that means we have to have a lot of rich dialogue with them. We have to understand the internet a little bit. Today, we're going to talk about some safety. We're going to talk about some parent ideas. And then also, we're going to talk about some dialogue starters, which we here at Smart Social feel like a rich dialogue between you and your kids is the #1 safety app in the world. Parents, it takes a little bit of effort, but I promise you, the outcome is incredible. Superintendent, it's so good to have you here. What type of a teacher did you start out as?
Well, it's great to be here. And as a teacher, I started out as an elementary teacher initially. I taught grades 3 and 4, and eventually migrated up to the middle school where I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade mathematics.
Now, how many kids do you have at home?
Oh, that's a great question. So I have 10 children in total. I have 2 grandchildren as well. The majority of my children are young adults now. My oldest is 30 years old, and my youngest is 15 years old. I have 2 left in high school. So, it's been a great journey.
Well, let's wear the parent hat today and the elementary school hat, a teacher hat, and then also the administrator hat. I'm excited to wear all these hats with you today. I want to dive into my first question for you here today. After a couple hundred of these conversations with your peers nationwide in about 45 states, we've heard a consistent trend, and we're hearing in some cases, not every community, but in many cases, students are growing up in a digital world filled with powerful technology, AI, and social media. Parents are saying they're sometimes lacking the maturity and the guidance to use it safely. And also, we're hearing that the result is more absences at school, lower focus sometimes, rising cyberbullying, declining self-esteem, AI misuse in the classroom sometimes. And parents are also telling us that they're trying to raise the best kids they can in a world they didn't grow up in, a world where now tech is moving faster than safety policies. Teens know how to hide apps and online behavior, and safety lessons usually come after a crisis. Superintendent, are there any other trends on this topic that you're seeing and so that we can alert other school districts before they see them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as it comes to trends, and I think as it comes to what specifically school districts are grappling with, technology is primary and chief amongst those concerns. As you think about that, you can actually segment that into a couple of different buckets. There is the constant overexposure to student access via cellular devices and things of that nature. There's social media interactions that fuel the cyberbullying and things along those lines. There's exposure and access, 24/7 access to information that one would probably never want their children to consume and take part in. And a child can be in just a room next door in the safety of one's home consuming inappropriate material. And then there's also the emerging capabilities of artificial intelligence, or AI. And, I think we've quickly moved from a place where school districts were making a determination about a position. Should we embrace it or should we not embrace it? To the reality that this technology is here, it's growing fast, and we need to figure out how to use it accordingly, how to use it in a way that promotes academic responsibility, academic honesty, and things along those lines. As a school district, Cherry Hill Public Schools just last year instituted a cell phone or technology device policy. And in that policy, what we did was we actually protected the time that's most important. We provided restrictions around the ability of students to use their cellular devices or technology-based devices in school. We were one of the first districts in the state to do that, and that process began with us approximately 2 years ago, where I began to, engage in these eyeball to eyeball emotional conversations with families across this district who are concerned about the overuse and the misuse of technology and the negative impacts, as you just described, that it was having on children. As I also engaged, the full community and spoke to my faculty and staff, overwhelmingly, overwhelmingly, my teachers felt and were able to provide anecdotes about just how distracting this misuse and overuse and these addictive behaviors that we've seen develop in students have had a negative impact, and we're having a negative impact on our students. So we took an approach where we surveyed over 3,000 people in the community. We surveyed our kids. We experimented with highly restricted devices. We explored a few different avenues. And what we ultimately arrived at was we needed to protect the time that's most valuable. And for us, that was our instructional time. So essentially, that policy, what that policy does is it was instituted last year. And what it does is it restricts student usage of cell phone devices during instructional time. So during instructional time, our kids are unable to use those devices. However, at the high school level, we have provided just a bit more latitude and privilege. They can use their devices during their lunch time. They can also use it, on their way to school and when they leave school. But we immediately saw positive impacts, unquestionable positive impacts. And I can tell you as well, I think any of the practices that we endeavor to take, we tried to take a research-based approach. It just so happens that there was a wonderful book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt that many of us, engaged in a book study around. It's a book that I dove into, and I was quite alarmed, having children who have gone through the emergence of these technology devices. It explained a lot for me as a parent. I said, oh, that explains what my daughter, was experiencing, or what my son, who's now in their upper 20s now, but they had experienced. But, for us, it was just prudent, and it made sense to provide some type of parameters, some type of structures that would allow our kids to be successful. And our kids did a great job with it. We saw a great decline in the amount of conflicts that kids were having. We saw an immediate increase in the amount of attention in classes and in student coursework. And what you see from there is when students are attentive, and they have an opportunity to really engage and fully immerse themselves in the learning experience, it enhances their ability to comprehend, learn, and then to produce positive outcomes.
I love it. I think it's great. I wrote down it. For those of us in our audience, they know that I take a lot of notes. So I'm learning from you, Superintendent. Okay, so that's a lot of safety. I love what you're talking about. I wrote down eyeball to eyeball. I love that for our audience, having real communication with parents, protect the time that's most valuable, which is the classroom instruction time, which I think AI can help with, but we have to be really careful there. And I love you really hit it on the head there. And then a decline in conflicts, increase in attention. I want to move our audience on to one of our biggest questions we get nationwide. Parents ask us, in my Tuesday and Thursday night big parent night events, parents, that I used to travel the country. I went to New Jersey a lot, Long Island, New York, Manhattan, and used to be one of the top speakers. But now we do all this online to teach people how to keep their kids safe. Parents, we hope that you'll come to one of our next free live parent evening events. But one of the biggest questions and trends we get is, what advice would you give a student to help them recognize some of the red flags of a dangerous stranger? Let's hear from a real student about how she might help a friend recognize these red flags.
If I had a friend talking online to a stranger, I think that I would feel a little bit uncomfortable with the whole situation. I would advise against it because so many indirect issues can come from that, and it could cause something to be worse than if they had just unadded them in the first place. Some red flags that I would have to advise them to cut it off with this person or to stop engaging would be if the person starts to get very involved in their personal life and they seem to be very intrigued in what's going on with them and wanting to know all the little details about what they do and who they are, and just very personal details and things that you wouldn't normally share with a stranger in real life. If they're very persistent and constantly wanting to talk to my friend or constantly trying to be involved in their life or wanting to speak to them, I feel like that's kind of a red flag. Another thing would be if they ask them to ever meet them anywhere in person right from the start, if they feel a sense of being uncomfortable or their intuition is just saying it's wrong, or if my intuition is saying something feels wrong with this, then I think that's a major red flag.
Parents, remember, coming to our next events is so easy. We have weekly live parent events and replays with big giveaways. We gave away a 3D printer last week to one lucky family. We give away Kindles and Bluetooth speakers. We have real teens in the program, so it's exciting to bring your teens if you like, and a premium parent newsletter. And don't forget, parents, not only do we have these teen programs with teens in them, but we have hundreds of videos designed just for teens, so you can show 1 to 3 minute videos to your kiddos, whether they're elementary, middle school, or high school, that resonate well, whether it's shining online, building your online identity. You also have elementary, middle school, and high school. And another thing that's so important, parents, is remember that no matter the topic that you have, we have the very best parent guides on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Fortnite, Minecraft, Roblox, Netflix, WhatsApp, and 450 more. They're not just in English. They're in English, Espanol, Mandarin, and 9 other languages. Parents, we hope you'll join us for the free events. Sneaky ways video apps keep teens watching. We've got a session number 2. If you missed the first one, there's a replay in your native language. We've got a professional development one. We've got it in Espanol, and we've got some more AI. We're teaching all year long these traits. We hope that you'll join us, especially come out for our big anti-bullying program in October. All right, so I want to walk you guys through my next question. Superintendent, in addition to these 220 conversations, we've also heard from their communities, and we're hearing that many parents feel overwhelmed trying to keep up with fast-moving online trends and digital safety risks. Students are finding ways to increase their screen time and bend the rules, especially when the expectations at school differ significantly from those at home. What trends, Superintendent, or pain points are you seeing when it comes to parent engagement? Where do you feel families are struggling the most to stay informed or connected?
Yeah, so I think, as it relates to trends and pain points around parent engagement and connection, there is so much information that is out there, so much information to consume that it becomes somewhat overwhelming, I think, for, just first and foremost, for parents in and of themselves in attempting to navigate this world. It seems that the kids are much more adept and much more adapted to navigating this world and acquiring information and things along those lines. But it's important, I think, for parents to rely on some of those more traditional parental techniques. And that's, something as simple as dinner conversations, sitting around a table and having conversations with your child and unpacking the day and talking about what the child is experiencing. What we see enhanced levels of isolation in students when they're engaged and they're consumed by devices. So you see a separation, and that's one of the pain points. You see children much more isolated, much more to themselves, and much more reluctant to open up and to share with their parents. Yeah, I just think you need to find natural opportunities to engage the children, to talk to the children, to understand who they're interacting with, to understand who their friends are, to understand the information that they are consuming. Sounds simplistic, but it's part of the technology world. It moves us away from some of the substance and the traditional things that root families and that bond experiences together. I also think that it's important for, and challenge as well, I think it's important for children to have an opportunity to engage in typical behaviors and social engagements and social activities with not only with their families, but with peers as well. So whether parents create those opportunities or there are opportunities that are manufactured through participation in team sports, clubs, and things along those lines. This misuse and this overuse of technology manifests itself where, as a high school principal many, many years ago, you go into the cafeteria with the kids and you have 350 kids in a cafeteria, and you see kids sitting at a table and the kids are not talking to one another. The kids are on devices and communicating with God only knows who on those devices rather than engaging and talking to one another. One of the things is when we understand what the concerns are, limit this overexposure, it almost forces us to go back to these elementary or behaviors of socialization where kids are talking, where they're playing Uno, they're engaged in social play and social games that I believe is productive and positive for their general development. So somewhat of a big topic, but I think it's important for families to reconnect with their children and to just maintain, to do those things that maintain that strong bond and develop those strong bonds between parent and child.
Yeah, that's awesome. Such a good point. And I love how you brought up that what happens in the cafeteria around screen time versus Uno, the games. So true. On that same note, Superintendent, I want to kind of wrap up this episode with a teaser from one of our big parent night events. Parents, I want to give you another teen tip from some of our teens that are in our program. We call this program that's coming up Sneaky Ways Video Apps Keeps Teens Watching, which is exactly what the superintendent kind of just said. And if you come to this big event, parents, this free night, it's all about understanding the subtle ways video apps keep your teens captivated, and you'll learn the strategies to help them balance screen time together. It won't be preachy. It'll be helpful. One of the biggest questions we get at this event is, "Hey Josh, what are some tips to help my teen manage their screen time?" Well, let's hear from two teens with tips on how to reset their screen time and in some cases how their moms help them.
I just try to hold myself accountable about how much time I'm spending because you can get lost really easily. While you're doing it, you think 30-second videos, what's the harm in that? But then when you've launched 4 hours out of your day, you feel a lot of regret. Why would I spend 5 hours scrolling on this app before bed when I could have been getting more sleep or being more productive throughout my day? My mom, she always lets me know when I'm just dead scrolling on TikTok for hours. Like she usually tells me how long it's been. You should probably get up and go do the things that you need to do. So besides holding yourself accountable, it's really helpful if you have a parent or someone that cares about you to hold you accountable for how much time you're losing on those video apps.
Some techniques I use to stop myself from getting sucked into social media is being very aware of why I'm on there, as well as understanding how it's addictive. Even though it can be fun to just sit on my phone and scroll or immerse myself in it, keeping in mind the things I need to do and setting aside the time to do that rather than falling into it like a trap.
All right. So parents who are watching this right now, you know that at the top of the hour, I told you having a rich dialogue with your kids, we think is the best safety app. So here's some questions you can use at home to ask your teen to have an open conversation and help them evaluate the quality of their screen time. You can use these in the car ride to school or on the way home, or maybe around the dinner table. You could ask, how do you feel after your screen time? And notice this is not a yes or no question, parents. This is what, when, who, how, and they have to think about it. And if they roll their eyes, it's still okay. You get 5 points just for asking. Parents, does that app or activity make you feel stronger or weaker after 1 hour? Get some thinking, like what? Next, what screen time activities or apps make you feel stronger? And they might say, well, when I'm learning this on YouTube or this, or a short period of this. Great. What activities make you feel more focused or relaxed? And these activities may be online, they may be not online. It might be, Mom, when we go on a walk together, or when we went on that road trip, I came back relaxed, or whatever that is. And then last, it's a really good one. How much time do you think is healthy? And well, what do you mean? Well, on TikTok, you said earlier this, and this. And so now they're starting to set some boundaries. We're opening up a dialogue. Superintendent, what are your thoughts and strategies and techniques when it comes to building a rich dialogue with kids and dialogue openers?
Yeah, I think it's very important to begin, I guess, with a cubbyism. Begin with the end in mind. So, what goals have you established for yourself? Right? What is it that you're attempting to accomplish? Once you have an understanding of what goals you have established for yourself, you can break those down into what micro goals have you established to help to accomplish that macro goal. And then what do I need to do in order to accomplish these micro goals? What do I need to do in order to accomplish the macro goals? I think if you begin with this understanding of what it is that you're aspiring to do, and then you can break it down into specific steps or behaviors that must be implemented in order to, accomplish those goals. I think you can kind of create a focus for oneself. And then from there, things like to-do list and like a daily agenda of, one might want to accomplish would be something that's definitely very beneficial. It's something I promote with my children, students, and even within myself.
I love that. I love the begin with the end in mind. That's such a great idea. Superintendent, I'd love to give you some rapid fire questions here so you can give us some of your insights in just a 30-second little answer. My first question for you is, what can parents do to help their teens reset their screen time?
So some of the things that I suggest that parents can do to help their children to reset their screen time is to just dive into the pool and dive all in. Reset it. reset it. You have to establish strong goals for oneself and monitor those goals as well. Without monitoring, we don't accomplish the goal. So set strong goals that are healthy and monitor those goals. Assess where you are on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, or whatever parameters or time frame that you establish, and stick to it and just keep that follow-up, that cycle going.
Yeah, excellent tips. Superintendent, how do autoplay and algorithm-driven feeds at home impact student focus and mental health at school?
Wow. So in my experience, what I've seen from autoplay and algorithm-driven feeds and how they impact student focus and mental health at school has been very dramatic. We've seen significant impacts on students. Typically, student conflicts that arise during the school day really don't happen during the school day. They're conflicts that have started the night before because of some negative comment that was made about one person, some shade that was thrown to one child from another child. And these conflicts come into school. They totally consume our children, have to be mediated, resolved. And what that does is it detracts from what kids are in school to do, and that's to learn. I think these algorithm-driven programs are the enemy. They're evil. They're definitely evil, and they need to be monitored closely.
Yeah, so true. I couldn't agree more. Okay, final question for you, Superintendent. What's one sign that a teen's video app usage or video game usage is shifting from entertainment to addiction?
Yeah, so in my experience, warning signs that teens' usage or video app usage is shifting from entertainment to addiction has to do with the level of isolation that the child is engaging in. I think when you start to see enhanced levels of isolation, moving away from social interactions and more interactions that are screen and just that one person, major telltale sign for me. I think in addition to that, just changes in behavior as well, in terms of mood swings, anxiety, depression, stress. It's palpable. You see those things as clear as day as you interact with kids, particularly adolescents.
Yeah, so true. Superintendent, you took a lot of time out of your busy schedule back to school. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here.
It was awesome. All right, to all of our audience, remember, it's all about that rich dialogue you have with your kids to keep them safe so they can be successful. And success sometimes means they're shining online. After the age of 16, they are then able to, with your guidance, be on social media a little. Yes, I said 16. We wait a little longer these days so that they're ready and they can enjoy their childhood a little bit more. Parents, one last tip is remember when you're posting online to try and keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids will model what you do online. Thanks so much for watching. I'm the host of the smartsocial.com podcast. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for spending time with the smartsocial.com podcast. If today's insights were useful, please share the episode with a fellow parent or educator and subscribe so you never miss our next conversation. And parents, make sure to join one of our next live online events each week to keep your family safe and also enter for a chance to win cool prizes. You can learn more at smartsocial.com. I'm your host, Josh Ochs, and parents, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite because your kids are watching what you're doing online. I'll see you on the next episode.